You are now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay, and I'm beyond honored to be joined today by actor, writer, producer, the one and only Michael Berryman. Michael, thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
It's my pleasure. It's good to see you.
You too. You've been in over 100 movies and television series, including One Flew the Cuckoo's Nest, Devil's Rejects, Hills Have Eyes, The X-Files, which I'm donning a shirt from today, Weird Science. That's just to name a few. But last year you wrote It's All Good, a Michael Berryman memoir in my own words. So let's start there. It's such a great book. I absolutely loved it. It's a roller coaster of emotions. And I think I knocked it out in about 2 to 3 days. I'm not an avid reader, but this one I just burnt through. So that tells you a little bit about that. But tell us about the book and what drove you to write it.
Thank you for the compliment. I'm glad it kind of grabbed you. The book is basically a memoir, my life story from my earliest memory, 1948, September 4th. Yeah, I popped out and I go, "Hey, here I am, world!" And my father had just returned from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He was a Navy neurologist and brain surgeon, actually, and he went on he was in the South Pacific, and then they said, "Hey, we're going to drop these bombs and radiation. We're not quite sure what it does to humans, so we're going to send you to ground zero and see what it did." And historically, we know it was quite horrendous. And when he came home, he carried radiation with him. And of course, that's what caused me to have a premature birth. I had numerous birth defects that I deal with even to this day. And so that's how the story begins. And I invite, and since you've read the book, you can concur with me on this. I wanted to take the story of this young boy and how he identified with reality, his place in the world, and then he gets exposed to the real world, so to speak. And in the beginning, I talk about my trip to Children's Hospital. I had to have my brain. Oh, my brain needed room to grow because it's so massive right now. Actually, I had a haircut one day on a Saturday. I wasn't too happy about that. I think I was about 6, and it never grew back. But what they did was they literally cut my skull apart in pieces, and put spacers of bone from my pelvis so the skull would expand. And if it did not expand, of course, we would not be having this conversation. And then the book, as you know, goes to from that early memory to waking up. And I'd like to pose to you, when I woke up, of course, I had bandages over my eyes, but it gave me a second start in life, so to speak, and it changed my perspective. And I invited the reader to sit in that comfortable easy chair behind this young boy's eyes in the attic, which is his head. And from that perspective, going forward through my life, family life, college, adventures, getting involved, meeting George Powell, getting involved in Cuckoo's Nest, etc. And I wanted it to be a memoir, not a Hollywood story. Yes, I've met a lot of wonderful people in the last 40 years, and that could be a secondary book, so to speak. But this, I wanted to bring out some of the lessons that I learned from some of my family members. And if since you've read it, you probably have a sweet spot in your heart for Sophie and Aunt Peggy. And there are people that I think there's moments in our lives where we intersect with situations and people, and if we don't make a decision about a particular time and place, we do realize that we're always offered an opportunity to have a reaction, and it comes down to choices. And so the choices that we make help us define who we are as individuals. So that was the whole premise to everyone that reads the book, to identify with their self and who are you and how are you going to go forward. And so is that pretty much parallel to your experience in reading the book?
It was, and like my biggest takeaway from the book was your kindness and your positivity. You seem to have that throughout the entire thing, and you had ups and downs. Like you had, I don't know if you would necessarily call it a rough life, but you had obstacles that you had to overcome and surpass. And I met you in Nashville at the Full Moon Horror Convention. I guess it's been probably 3 years ago, and you were so kind then. So the book just solidifies what I already had in my mind as who you were as a person. And I'm someone who I've dealt with depression my entire adult life. Like I've had those ups and downs myself, and I'm not nearly as positive, but I also haven't gone through what you've gone through. So it sets a big precedent of the person that you are inside. And with all your setbacks, your medical issues, your personal life, did that positivity, did you ever struggle with that? Like where you let the depression really get you down? Because it's been about 2 months since I read the book, but I don't think, like, obviously you were sad in the book at times, you had medical issues, but I don't think you ever really conveyed that, you know, I don't think you ever said you were suicidal or anything like that. So I was just curious if your positivity ever wore down during all that.
Absolutely, we be human, and yes, it's like a shadow phantom of yourself that is attached to you within this confines of how you see reality. And it has, I don't give it a name, but we all have this situation. It's like a dual universe. And what what I wanted to convey is that yes, there's some moments in the book where I explain some very, very, very challenging, dark moments. And what has always helped me get through, and I'm not saying it's just push a button, throw a switch, and now everything's hunky dory. No, that's not life. That's not how it is. But I would say the shared compassion that we experience with other humans is something that we all have in common. And judging a book by its cover, so to speak, like when my father, being a brain surgeon, one day I mentioned in the book where he says, um, I've I've done a lot of surgeries, and I've done a lot of autopsies. And my father asked me one day, he says, I've never found the soul. Where do you think it is? So early on, I was beginning these wonderful quandaries of, that's a good question. I'm not sure. My Aunt Peggy giving me the book Beautiful Joe, it kind of helped me understand that I was not alone in this human dynamic called life. And we all have our ups and downs. All of our associates and friends, we have different degrees of challenges. So when you look to find the common shared humanity in one another, it's a positive. It doesn't remove the ouch from what you're dealing with. And it's just so very, very important, I believe, to focus on the positive. Now, when I see a situation that is like challenging, threatening, dangerous, unfair, I kind of go back to that childhood where comic book heroes, in other words, you want to fix the rights, and the wrongs, and you want to make things kind of even or fair or equitable, and it doesn't always happen that way. But good friends and honesty and a sense of spirituality. I'm not a church. Well, I talk about Catholic in the book, and it's all straight up. I think that little piece of God that's in all of us is something that we can always kind of come back to home base with and exhale And whenever I've had a challenging situation, I'll go out in nature, like I'll go surfing or go out in the woods or talk to an animal. Like I am on my Facebook page, I post, people send to my main feed wonderful links to people saving people, animals saving people. I mean, the one I posted the other day of the guy who worked at a animal lion sanctuary, and a lion had, like, how ironic, the thorn in the foot thing, and actually he was helping it heal, and he was doing massage on the pads of these lions, and now the lions will just come up and lay on their back and go, hey, I'm next. So what does that mean? Well, I think to me it means that we're all part of this wonderful thing called the natural world, and then of course there are worlds within worlds. So all of that being said, in the babble that I produce often, are you going to make the world a better place to your best abilities? What does your life entail? And being grateful, I think, is probably one of the biggest lessons that's I try to put into the book.
Yeah, very well said. And you're right about all that. I grew up in church, not Catholic, it was Southern Baptist. I don't know if that's better or worse. I guess it depends. But I was always heavy into church, and the older I got, I don't know, I just kind of stepped away because you just see the hypocrisy and everything. Like, it's not necessarily I have an issue with God, it's just his fan base at times, or a little much. My uncle was a preacher. He was very like pushy with everything. He would stand up there and preach one lesson, and then he would come back to me and tell me something completely different, like trying to push me into all that. So it was easy for me to step away. But yeah, that was well put. And I love that you love animals. I love animals more. I hate to say more than people, not necessarily all the way, all of them, but I do have a fondness for animals, and I like all the stories that you post. I enjoy seeing all that.
Oh, that's yeah, they're
So
good.
your book kind of ends. I think it ends at The Hills Have Eyes, right? Like, kind of there. So do you have plans for another one to kind of pick up?
Yeah, your question's very timely. I was just talking to my manager earlier about that possibility, and um, trying to farm it out to other groups and entities. They kind of want to run with it and do their version of your story. So um, I probably will. It would be nice if I could get it into bookstores, on a national level. Yay! I don't. I been, I had a couple send out to some notable people, but people are busy these days. But the answer is probably yes. And I'm not going to retire on this particular book, but the bottom line is I wanted to encourage people to write their own story. Everybody has a story, and everybody's got those moments of clarity where you go, I think I understand, why we're here and what is it we're supposed to do. But I've never had an animal lie to me, for instance.
Right.
um, I, oh gosh, I've seen some amazing things in that regard. Um, but to encourage people to appreciate, your life. We all get challenges, but one of the lessons I kind of taught myself was moment to moment, um, and then, well, what I did was, if you listen to your heartbeat as an example, okay, it's happening all the time unconsciously. Thank God, it keeps on working. Okay, well, it's a sound, right? Okay. Um, uh, have you ever been to like a gathering of nations or a powwow or any indigenous entity? I've been to the Amazon and a few other wonderful places, and drums are very very much common. And so I said, drum beat, heartbeat. It's kind of like a drum beat. Well, what if I take a prayer or a message and I just apply it, say, hey, body, brain, spirit, whatever. Every time that drum is beat, it's going to have a message. What do I want that message to be? So I kind of postulated that idea and just gifted it to my heart. So whenever it beats, even when I'm not paying attention to it, it's putting out that persona. It's putting out that message, that energy. And energy is kind of an interesting concept. I took some classes in physics in university, and I'm not a scientist, but my point is. Intent is very, very critical. And being more gentle with ourselves, like we can be our own worst enemy. And I used to watch like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, well, or the bumper stickers. The one that dies with the most toys wins. Really, what did you win? Hmm. So what really matters? Well, I say um, compassion, uh, uh, helping others, allowing yourself to be helped. That's a real good one too, because we can be so tough on ourselves. And so, if you're having a bad day, go outside, talk to your horse, your dog, or your cat, and say, "Hey, and you babble away, and they look at you, and they're very brilliant, and they'll go, "You're right, meow, woof."
I
And
used to do that regularly. My dog passed last January. And I'm still not
yeah,
over it, but
yeah.
it does make you feel so much better because there's no judgment there either. Like we're our own worst enemies, but like I said, we're our own worst critic as well, and I'm guilty as that as anybody. It's hard, but you gotta learn how to love yourself and to help yourself. And when you do that, and like I said,
That's
like go out,
right.
like even when I'm at work, if I get frustrated, I don't climb to a mountain, but I get up and I take a lap around the building. Sometimes I go outside. Like you just have to step away
Yes.
and collect yourself.
Yes. Sometimes it really is as simple as that. Get up, just go outside, take a few deep breaths, and refocus. Gather that energy back in, because when we're thinking about this and that and bills and I'm not doing the best I could, and I wish I had more skills or this tool to do this, and it's hard to study and learn, blah blah blah. Holy moly. Well, all of those thoughts are expelling energy like crazy, man. And so sometimes you have to just bring it all back in. It's kind of like meditation, learning to relax. There's an Eagle song, it's called Learn to Be Still. I mean, art, music, uh, the art of cooking. I love my friends that I know I've met in Italy, for instance, because a meal lasts like hours, and breaking bread, having a glass of wine, a conversation ensues. Um, Meeting people from other zip codes and understanding that we're all basically pretty much doing the same stuff. What would help the most, in my opinion, probably um, well, if we get into war, that would be kind of cool. Uh, I think I mentioned this in my book. There's two concepts that are cautionary, in my opinion. And one is, it causes most pain and suffering on the planet. And that is, if I draw a line in the dirt, blood leaves people's bodies. People die. There's pain and suffering. Wow. Okay. Don't draw a line in the dirt. There's more conceptually to that idea. You could have a lecture on it. The number two is my God's better than your God. Well, maybe they're related. Maybe they have some. So it really comes down to black and white. Most people, I think, live in shades of gray on occasion. So um, there is a saying. That is, what is it that you wish for? And light. Uh, I kind of lean in that direction. So go toward the light.
Yeah, beautifully said. So in your book, you talk about being discovered by George Powell. That was his name, right? So he got you your first role, which was a Doc Savage film. when you got that opportunity, did anything inside tell you that your life was about to change, or did you think this was just kind of a one-off, like, okay, I'll be here for a little bit, then I'll go back to my normal life?
Well, I appreciate you thinking that I had a normal life. That's a joke. Well, I had just left Washington State, helped my friend rebuild his home that had burnt down, and then I explained how the irony of the day I was my friend left, and well, I got burned in the with that truck carburetor accident, and then the day I leave to fly back to California, my friend comes back to his home from taking me to the airport, and there's that Social Security disability check, which would have kept me in Washington State, and instead it chases me down in Venice Beach, California. I grew up in Santa Monica, but in the book I explained why I wasn't welcome to live in the house I grew up in at that particular time. So it was kind of serendipitous. Also having the out-of-body experience when my shirt was on fire, um, uh, it's it's got some impact, but we all have situations like that in life, and I don't think that there's, some magic wizard is saying, okay, we're going to make this happen. And no, life just has, turns and twists, and we deal with them. But it was so serendipitous. And then when I did meet George, like I explained, I said, "Wow, do you know who you are? You made some really cool movies." And he was wonderful. And I explained how I get a Taft-Hartley contract. I got a guarantee of 2 days work, and I got my SAG card, and I think I made $400 and didn't have an agent. And then I go, "Wow, that was a pretty quick career. What do I do now? Do I go back and try to homestead in Alaska because I love nature? Maybe got to get out of the hot climate. I don't do heat real good, et cetera." And I had all these thoughts. I had no idea what I was going to do to, survive that. And I know I'm 75, and I'm going, wow, it's been a strange journey. And just by coincidence, George's casting director was casting for Cuckoo's Nest. I didn't have headshots, an agent, or nothing. And they said, "Hey, we need someone to play the lobotomy character for Cuckoo's Nest." And looks like he had a lobotomy, maybe. So, just going, it was perfect, and I got a phone call, and they said, "Hey, want to come on down and meet Michael Douglas and Saul Zaentz and Milos Forman and Joel Douglas?" And sure, okay. And then the next thing I knew, I'm in Oregon, in Salem, Oregon, working on Cuckoo's Nest for 127 days. And I learned a lot. It was a life-changing experience. And I've been forever grateful to George and the old guy that tried to start the truck when I was pouring gas on the carburetor.
That was a wild story, like the out-of-body experience. Like, your memory's impeccable. Like,
It was a
I
panic
don't have that
attack.
memory.
That was a panic attack. I could hear the ripple of the wind from the flames that were like 50, 10 feet tall,
Right.
slap, and I go, "What do I do? I better take my shirt off." Holy crap, Um, yeah, that was a rush.
I bet. After Cuckoo's Nest, you went to The Hills Have Eyes. Those are two very revered films to this day. Um, what, did you have like even an inkling in your head of what was going on in your life and how these movies would transcend that to even today people reference to and adore?
Yes. Well, Wes and Peter Lockenberry Wes Craven he had done Last House on the Left. I had not seen it, but I heard about it. I go, "Well, that's kind of rough and tough." But once I got to know Wes, and he's a really smart guy, very a lot of humanity, and he knew how to tell stories, and so. Um, uh, it was a tough shoot, but I made friends, for life. I'm still in touch with Susan and the rest of the gang. And after a while, I worked with Wes on Hills 2, and then we did Deadly Blessings and another project. But it, I worked real hard on my craft. I would ask questions constantly, to the people that are working the camera or the lighting or I got to work with Fred Phillips in Cuckoo's Nest. He designed the Star Trek ears for Spock. I mean, and every morning, getting my for 127 days, um, he would tell me stories about Hollywood, about the craft, what we do. Um, and so I started getting a skill set, and I was very grateful to have an opportunity to be in an industry where, there's no job security in what we do. If you catch a golden ring and you get on a TV series, I've come really, really close in the past, and then it just didn't get picked up. I had one with it was me, Lyle Alzado, Jimmy Smits, and Roddy Piper, and we were the and Sam Jones. We were the Blue Bullets, Vietnam vets, and we had a trucking company. They had a truck where we would take special loads to wherever they were and solve crime and do stuff like that. And the cab of the truck was built by a gentleman who turned into a helicopter and fly around. And Glenn Larson produced it, and it's called The Highwayman. And it had so much potential, and these people I was working with were just incredible. And we had a big rap party in Culver City at a studio, and a nice dinner, and they showed the movie, and we were all kind of excited. Oh boy, boy! And then didn't get picked up. There was another project that was really, really close. It's called let's see, Montana Smith and the Last Dinosaur, and and it was going to be okay. We're aliens and we're in Hawaii, and a T-Rex actually is still existing in Hawaii. And we have a spaceship that's, we can make it like invisible, and we're actually coming to get our buddy, this T-Rex, and take him back home to our planet. And let's see, I'm trying to think who oh yeah, it was Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck, this is before he got his TV show. Tom Selleck was going to be, he was like our leader. And then the other gentleman was, I'm trying to think of his name. He was a very famous athlete, football player. Can't think of who he was right now. And then there was me. And um, they had already built the spaceship and the T-Rex in Hawaii. And so I'm looking forward to this project getting picked up and another series, and then Tom got his TV show, and it didn't happen. So that's
both of those sound amazing. Like I would watch both of those easily. Like those.
Oh, they were really a lot of fun. But that being said, in life, all it takes is you could be handsome, pretty, rich, famous, whatever, powerful, and slip on that bar of soap in the shower, and then all of a sudden you have somebody taking care of you that you've never met before, and you're going, wow, what a situation I have. So that goes back to the heartbeat. It's every time the heartbeat, it's make it, give it a not a name, but what I'm trying to say is give it the intention of where you want to go. I think these days people are overwhelmed with how fast society is moving now, and with AI on this computer. I keep a piece of tape over the camera just so people don't not necessarily spy on you, but almost everything you do and say these days is being recorded forever. I loved reading science fiction and futuristic stories. H.G. Wells, for instance, The Machine Stops. It's a great short story. You should read it. Cautionary tales. These are cautionary tales like Logan's Run, Soylent Green, Andromeda Strain. They think out of the box. I remember back in the days, like they say, kids today are overly protected. Well, there's good intentions for parents, things to be safe, but back in back in the day when I was a kid, things were slower, different. Yeah, I understand that. And gosh, we played in the mud. We threw rocks at one another, played with sticks. I mean, these days you're going to have a lawsuit, get in trouble. People just need to exhale. That would be kind of cool. But I think this over excited, generated, overly stimulated is not healthy for people. There used to be things called retreats. Some, churches and stuff would have them, other groups and organizations. I was in the Boy Scouts. We'd go camping in Catalina Island, or been up in the Sequoia National Forest. I learned a lot of skills. I love my friends. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in California, and it was it's famous for architecture, agriculture, engineering, and a few other things. But I would hang out with the Aggies. And this is like in our 1966, 67, just before hippiedom started, and psychedelic this and that. It was wonderful, but they were more down to earth than almost anybody. So I would hang out there, and besides, the gals there, they look good in their jeans. And now it's told that to say gal these days is not the right word. Can't. It's an improper term. Really, people grow up. I mean, come on. The thin skin has got to go away. Grow some calluses, do something, get back to real. Where does food come from? And I mean, there's so much content out there now, like on YouTube, for instance, which I'm very grateful for, by the way. And every once in a while, I like to hit up something like some footage from George Carlin. There are mentors out there. And each generation reaches a time in their life where they think that they've got everything all figured out. It's like when the children are lecturing the parents. That's always a good one. So it's called life. So everybody has a story. I encourage everybody watching this, write your book, write your story, make it into a song. I got to meet Joni Mitchell back in the day at the Troubadour. I think I mentioned that in the book, and
yeah,
I always had a crush on her because she's so talented and her life is very, very interesting. And the Troubadour is a very famous club in Los Angeles. It's small, everybody famous. I mean, I know Bob Dylan and a couple other people. So my point is, one day, a buddy of mine that I used to take scuba diving lessons with, and a very, very good friend. We went to college together, high school friend, and he played a great Martin guitar. I can sing pretty darn well, but my fingers are kind of weird. I just can't quite make it sound really great, but I can sing. So he and we did like a Simon and Garfunkel thing for a while. We played at a few parties and a few events, picnics, whatever. And we were pretty locked into FM radio in LA. There was even a guy named Wolfman Jack. He had a barge that was parked out into the ocean, just right past the line where the FCC says, okay, you have freedom to speak your mind or play whatever songs you want to play. And he would do some very good interviews. Well, that being said, one day, my buddy, we're in high school, he says, hey, Joni Mitchell's going to do a sound check at the Troubadour at 3 o'clock, 3:30. So we skipped class. I sold advertising for the yearbook. So I went into the dean's office that would use his telephone to sell advertising for the yearbook. Well, in his drawer, he had a notepad about this thick, and it had his signature, and it was to get out of class, the slips. I need to go here, I need to go to the dentist, I got to do this for the coach, whatever. And he had a stamp with his signature. So I stamped a whole bunch of those suckers, and I made a little money on them. Anyway, so I did that so I didn't have to go to detention. I actually had permission. And how come you didn't go to class? Well, here the dean says I could. I had to go do something. Oh, okay. So we hopped on the blue bus, the Santa Monica blue bus, which the Doors talk about the blue bus. That was Santa Monica. So we go up there and go to the Troubadour, and they're just sort of sitting. It's just her on the riser. My friend of theirs sitting right in front of the stage, and she's tuning up for a show that evening. And the rest of the place, the people in the kitchen, come and get dialed in, and there was no fanfare. It was just this wonderful, beautiful woman playing the guitar. You could feel the vibration from the body of the guitar, and we let her know that we knew a lot of her songs, and she did a whole like a 20-minute set just for us. I was in heaven. It was wonderful. So years later, I'm coming back from doing the episode in Vancouver, Washington on the X-Files. And I decided to not fly home. I decided to rent a car and drive. I wanted to take Highway 1 the whole way. I used to have a Norton Commando 750, 1972 Commando, and twice I have ridden from Venice Beach to Vancouver on Highway 1 the entire way, twice in my life. And I took my pool cue with me. I was a pretty good player. I'd go to honky tonks and bars and shoot some pool, buy some brewskis for the locals, and sometimes make a little, spending cash. Had outrun a pack of Harleys one night, and they wanted to they wanted to steal my bike. Oh God, I was crazy. Because I was at this bar. I'm shooting pool. I think it was in Oregon somewhere, and I overheard this conversation, and this guy goes, "Yeah, so and so, he likes Limeys, British bikes. So yeah, we got to steal that guy's bike, and we'll make some money." And I'm going, "Wow, okay, that's a bummer." And I don't know where I'm going to stay that night. So anyway, we're playing pool. I'm winning, and they're going, letting them win. I'm buying a round of drinks for everybody. And finally, I sneak out. I get on my bike. I fire it up. Well, see, the brain works pretty good. So what I did was, I had I installed a switch on my tail light and brake light. So if I had to brake at night and didn't want people to know I was slowing down or even see my tail light, I could turn it off. Little Bird told me a long time ago, this might come in handy. Well, that night, I'm rolling down the road, and these guys hop on their Harleys, and I got like 3 bikes in front of me and 5 behind me, and I'm going, this is not cool. And I'm on a road that will go out eventually to Idaho. And I'm tapping my tank, going, how much gas do I have left? I have to ditch these guys. So I finally just, in my head, I started remembering every article on a motorcycle magazine about how well these bikes handle. Well, they handle pretty good. And the Harleys, they're great bikes, but you know what? Yeah, you're not going to be doing this as well as I could. So I finally just said, it's like 10 o'clock at night. I go, why not? And I just dropped it a gear. I rolled up to the head guy, and I flipped him off, and I just dumped it another gear and just took off. And it's totally dark, and I'm going, well, I'm either going to be dead or safe, one or the other. And I finally get ahead of them. They're jamming, trying to catch me, and I see a little road coming up, and I take it's gravel. So I'm kind of like, oh shit. And it loops back down underneath this bridge, and there's a creek under here. I'm under here. They roll past me. They come back, and they're having a conversation right above me, and I'm freezing. And they're babbling. And I waited for about 45 minutes after they left just to make sure I was safe. And then I went back and the way I was heading, and I found a motel, and I got my room. I looked around. I took my bike. I rolled it right inside the room, and yeah, it was an interesting day. But coming back from the X-Files, I'm in this car, and I'm driving down Coast Highway, and I'm getting must have been 2 in the morning, and I'm hearing Canadian radio still, and they're interviewing Joni Mitchell. Okay, you go, oh wow. and she was talking about how David Crosby had his liver transplant, and he had emailed her, and she's telling the story how he was asking her to send him some song lyrics for his next album, and here's what Joni Mitchell says. She goes, "I told him that you're very talented, and stop leaning on me for that. Write your own damn song." Yeah, and they're very talented. Crosby, Stills and Nash, come on.
Yeah.
And in the her Blue album is probably one of the finest albums around, and her life is a very interesting story. Um, the song "Our House," that was Graham Nash and Joni Mitchell sharing a house in Laurel Canyon, and Stephen Stills lived a few doors down from there. And I think Frank Zappa was up the road. The canyons in the late '60s and early '70s were heaven. I used to hitchhike and try to just sort of get in. You'd go to the little village, and there's a cafe there. People are having coffee. You never know who was going to show up. It was a wonderful time in music in California. It was really wonderful. So why am I telling you all this? We have these blessed days. We have times in our lives where situations are just, it's not glitter and glam and money. It's just throwing money at people and having crazy, stupid parties. No, it's just life. Just people being people. Music brings people together. Animals bring people together. Appreciating nature brings people together. Gee, if I had one magic wand and I could make something happen globally, there's a big list, but one of them would be a clean water for everybody, which would mean all our streams and rivers would be clean and protected. And maybe there wouldn't be as much plastic in the ocean, for instance. You just take care of the basics, people. If you take care of the basics, right? If everybody woke up with a full belly in their tummy, would there be a tendency to maybe hurt one another and grab a gun and whatever? I mean, it's almost like the population of Earth needs to go to well, they call them sanitariums, but there used to be places out in the country where people would leave from the city and they'd put them there. I forget it's not the right word, sanitarium, but where you just go chill. We'll go camping, but don't bring all that stuff with you. What do you mean? A tent, sleeping bag, make a fire, cook something. It's got a little bit of dirt in it. Who cares? It tastes great. Why does it taste great? That's why.
Right. Turn your phone off. It's so easy. It's so easy for us to find the differences between one another instead of what we share and what we have in common. And you're right. The world would be a better place if we just took care of one another a little bit more. I have one more quick question, then we'll close up shop.
We go a little longer.
Okay, I'm a fan of The Guyver. One of our co-hosts that couldn't be on, John, introduced it to me. I absolutely adore it. Was it as much fun making that as it is watching it?
Yes. Screaming Mad George is an artist. The suits that we had, the Zonoid suits, had such detail, and I wanted that. I wanted mine. That was actually I had a full body cast for that. George is tremendous. Steve Wang is a great producer. The Guyver, if anyone watching this, get the first the Guyver movie. It's a lot of fun. The opening gag with the toaster was hilarious. One of my favorite scenes, was when my girlfriend, the redheaded Spice Williams, she was one of the original glorious ladies of wrestling, Glow. And she was an athletic woman. She was a wrestler, and we had such a good time. And when I'm in the van waiting for my two compadres to take care of some business, I start because George he says, "Here's an idea for the scene. What do these people do when they're not doing this type of behavior?" And so we kicked some ideas around, and that's when I tell her, I go, this Guyver thing, when this is all said and done, I think we're going to go on vacation. And she goes, "Really?" And I go, yeah. Uh, and she goes, "Will you take me shopping?" So here's this gruff, this Lisker guy going, yeah, I'll take you shopping. Then, he's sweet on her, of course, but he's a tough guy. And then he goes, "In Brazil." So that's the kind of flow that happens in that movie. It's just absolutely fun. And Jimmy Walker, JJ, just a hoot, just too much fun. Great guy, great guy. Yeah, the Guyver's a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. I got it. I found it on eBay for like $20. The Arrow,
Oh, good
like
deal.
it's very affordable. I'm sure it's streaming somewhere, but definitely go see it if you haven't. Last question. You've had, like I said, I think it's 107 roles overall so far. Is there one that you hold a little bit that's a little bit more special in your heart than the other ones that
Yes.
you hold more dear?
Yeah, yes, there is, but I want to dovetail and close on a Guyver moment, and then I will answer that question. We were in downtown LA, where the LA River, which is just a concrete uh, water basin for collecting the water. It's just Harry Mulholland, the whole thing, Chinatown, study it. It's all relative. But so we're filming nights, and of course, when you're working in a city or whatever, we had LAPD just for security, just in case for whatever reason. And I'm taking a break, and I'm uh, uh, let's see, I hear gunshots. I go, wow, what's going on? And I walk around a corner. I see these two officers, and it's a big channel, concrete, and way across the other side of it are these holes. And they look like tubes, like big pipes. And these guys, I said, "Officers, what's going on?" They go, "Oh, well." I said, "What are you shooting at?" They go, "Oh, I says, those." And I look, I see some animals moving along. And I go, "You're shooting at dogs?" He goes, "No, they're harbor rats. They're huge." And then he hands me his gun. He goes, "Hey, you want to take a shot?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." I miss, but uh, strange things have happened. Um, but to answer the question about special moments, yes. There is in the X-Files episode where uh, Owen Jarvis is, they're not quite sure if he's a good guy or a bad guy, and then Scully and Mulder switch their roles as far as believing. And I'm actually a guardian angel, and working with David and Jillian was great. But it was the last time I had to audition ever. And I had read the part, and there had been I think I mentioned this in my book, I'm not sure. I had a friend that was murdered, and uh,
Yeah,
the
you did
night
mention
before,
that in the book. She came to visit you the night before, right? Yeah, that's in
correct,
the book. Yes,
correct,
sir.
correct. Yes, that's correct. So I don't want to spoil that for the readers, but uh, to get how that all came about, when I going to go. I take her to the ocean. I mean, you have to read the book. It's a great scene. Great scene. Man, it was a tough. Anyway, again, it goes back to how do you heal from a situation like that? And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't go to a therapist or anything. I just figured, I don't know what's going to happen here. And I got the sides for the X-Files character. They think he's a harmful person, but actually he's a guardian angel, and he gives his life to save the boy. Well, okay, it's registering in my head. I'm in the room with Chris Carter and David Nutter and the rest of the production crew, and I go, I do the lines, and then he gives me a little more background into the character, and I go, okay. And I tell them this, I go, I'm ready to give you the character. I've developed it. But I want you to know that uh, uh, the people in the in the room outside waiting to be interviewed, and you're going to see 100 people. I know that. And a lot of them I know personally, and they're all very talented, but I'm the guy you want. And here we go. And I did the scene. And Chris leans back and he says, "We'll see you in Vancouver. We only have one request." And I go, "And what would that be?" He says, "Well, when you exit the room, don't act like you got the part." I says, "Oh, I understand. Everybody deserves a shot at it. And you might use them for something else subsequently." And I shook his hand. I walked out the room and went out to my truck. And I barely made it out of the room without, hooping and hollering. But when I got to Vancouver to do the more intense scenes in that episode, that's where I drew my energy from. That gave me a chance to complete a circle, so to speak. I think a lot of times in our lives we have situations that the circle's not complete. It's broken or fractured to a certain degree. And I think part of our ability to be gentle with ourselves and be honest and truthful with ourselves requires light, because we can't live in the shadows. It's not a good idea, in my opinion, to make decisions based in the gray areas. You have to make a choice. Too many people in the world throughout history and beyond. It's kind of like the indecisiveness of the gray zone. If you don't make a choice will be made for you. So what are you going to do?
Right.
Be lazy. It only takes 3 muscles to smile.
Very well said. All right, so we're going to wrap up for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and we have a group on Facebook as well. And go buy Michael's book. It's available on Amazon, hardcover, paperback, and Kindle version. Like I've already said, it's a quick read. It's an emotional roller coaster. And honestly, I feel like I came out of it a better person. You're very insightful. You have a beautiful soul. Your outlook on life is wondrous. Thank you again for taking some time with us, with me today, just me. But if you want to take a second to talk about any projects or cons you have coming up in the future.
Well, since you asked, my notes. Okay, June 21st to 22nd, I'll be in Denton, Texas at Necroflesh. And in, let's see, August the 16th through the 17th at the Cleveland Horror Oddities Convention. And I get to go to Hungary and work on a movie called Ever After. And I post stuff on my Facebook page when more things are popping up. But since COVID is gone, it's nice to know that people are getting out there. And if you've never been to a horror convention, they're just a lot of fun. You'll see families dressed up in costumes. I love to talk to the children. I go, "Hey, your parents look like zombies, and your dad's got a foot coming out of his neck. And are you not embarrassed to be here in public? See them?" I go, "Oh no, they're not like that all the time, So they're just a lot of fun. Comic book conventions. Why not be a kid? You want to be a grown up all the time.
Right.
There's times and places where you can just choose to just chill and enjoy life.
Yeah,
Because remember,
it's a good escape too. Just like going out on a nature hike, go to a convention. It's a great escape as well.
Exactly. Exactly. So keep the drum beating.
Keep the drum beating. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you again. Signing off for this episode, I'm Jay with the one and only Michael Berryman. And until next time, keep it spooky.